Welcome to Front Range Facts. This is Anthony Meisner.
This is Jim Marion.
Welcome to our local update for the month of July. One thing that we wanted to talk to you about was just the greater metro market and really where this is headed. Because right now we've seen a really slow increase in inventory. We have a muted amount of people, putting things under contract and sales. But what does that really mean, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what are we seeing, Jim? I mean,
well, detached, is really seeing, essentially, pretty flat growth as far as things go. They're down, a little bit. What was it, like 7-8%? I think in sale price for the year.
Yeah, but like average sales price year over year right now is, changed. It's about flat, right? Like you said, the one thing is the sold numbers are down 17%. So we've seen a lot less sales. The active units are down. We don't have nearly as much inventory as last year. And that seasonally was really not to be expected too much because buyers are still pulling stuff off the market, even though there's less listings, there's also less buyers.
But there's more resiliency definitely in the Front Range than in the statewide numbers as well, because that's like down 26%, versus.
Yeah, exactly. And so our supply of inventory has changed pretty, marginally from this time last year. And it's been a little bit more muted, right? With less buyers and less sellers active in the market, we're seeing less seasonality in the trends, right?
Super tight though in Jeffco, 1.2, months supply of inventory there, not much for sale at all. And that's where like Arvada, for example, this year has been seeing extreme price, wars, which has been pretty wild to see with the 7% interest rate.
Yeah, I think that's the big takeaway here when you look at the local markets. You need to look really hyper local in a lot of ways if you're a seller. If you're a buyer, you need to look a little bit more broad, but do understand that it is going to vary even neighborhood to neighborhood in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
As we're seeing these shift in inventory. So we just talked about that one. How about this one? This is by price point. So price point has given us a lot of really fascinating information this year. We've had major changes in inventory at the luxury price points. We have nearly no inventory shift down at the lower end of the market. Where you really see the problems is the cost of money, right? So in that, $1 million range or even in that $800,000 range, you've seen a lot less sales take place because people are, it's just a little bit less affordable, right?
Yeah.
All right, Kate. So this is really explains it.
Yeah, I mean, month supply of inventory. Again, we've seen that 3 million plus. Stretch out to 18 months before COVID.
Right.
Seeing it just at 8 months basically is still showing that there's pretty solid demand for it. There's a lot of people who don't need to do loans, right? And so they're less affected by these interest rates, and they're willing to pay for it, and they tend to be ones who can afford more expensive homes.
Yeah, and I think this is a really good opportunity for that. If you're in a trade-up position where maybe you could sell at $1 million and buy at $2 million, this might be a really good time for that because you'd actually go out in a balanced market up there at $2 million, and you're still getting some decent traffic. I mean, 1 to 2 million last month only had 26 days in MLS on average for the ones that sold. So I don't think this is a bad market for any sellers unless you're in the ultra high end and maybe you have a unique property. But listings are going quick, and right at the lower the price point. I mean,
anything under $1 million, less than 2 months of inventory is phenomenal from a seller's perspective.
It's a phenomenal seller's market. So look at this. This is the percentage sold price to list price. This is more like set your expectations as a seller or as a buyer, like really understand what you're getting into. We don't have those crazy bidding wars like we had this time last year, but at the same time, it's not nearly as slow as it was in the off season, right? So you get into that fall winter time, we got down pretty much into that 98% range in a lot of cases. We're just over 100%. This is the peak of the market. Things are going to trend down a little bit for the rest of the year, but marginally, right?
Yeah.
Nothing too crazy. We did see at the very bottom of the market, you saw a lot of bidding wars, right? So any of those condo, townhouses, project homes, things that are lower in price point had, quite a bit of competition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but 20% over on that thing doesn't mean much to much people, in this market.
No, not at all. All right, so let's take a look at Boulder County. Jim, what's
so the average close price right now is 1.145, and the median is at 838. So this is definitely down from the peak where we hit over 1.2. For things, but we're holding pretty steady. And all things go down by 2.8 from this time last year. So it's basically tracking to where we were. What in 2019? Is that the red one, or is it 2021 with it?
Red one would be 2020.
It's hard to see.
2021.
Yeah. So
the green one's 2019.
Yeah. So the median price, kind of scraping by, tracking closely to that 2021 pricing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this is due to a lot of variables in the market, right? What people are buying and selling is very different what they were buying before. But look at this. This is active units of inventory. The craziest part is we're almost at this focal point where 2019 and 2022 are really similar to the inventory level we have today, active units on the market,
Yeah.
largely related to the fact that we've had this reduced pool of sellers, right? New listings coming to market is down almost 20% right now.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, it's actually was much, much lower in 2019. So
Yeah.
that's why you see this pretty stable line of inventory of active units on the market. You get over here to the demand side, those pending listings, yeah, they dropped off from those heightened COVID years, but at the same time, we're still in a pretty reasonable place, right? We had a
Yeah.
lot less transactions take place in 2019. We're getting more kind of closer back.
There's
to
been a lot of trends over this year that have shown 2019 as kind of the closest tracking point, I think, to a lot of the data that we've been seeing.
Yeah, I think that's a really positive sign to see
Mhm.
as kind of out of the pandemic craziness. And, we see month supply of inventory at 2.7. Boulder County tends to be a lot higher because of its price point with
Yeah.
its month supply of inventory than a lot of other places, but it's trending and changing quite a bit, quite similarly to everywhere else,
Yeah.
right? All right, so, last one. Speed of the market.
Yeah.
So the speed of the market in Boulder County has trended down to 27 days. It's pretty fast. It's going to trend up the rest of the year. Expect something like 2019, right? I mean, you can see that it should slow down going into the fall, into the fourth quarter. And then just like almost everywhere else in the county, 99.8%, we're kind of at the peak of those bidding wars for the year. Hot houses are obviously going to go at asking price over asking price, and stuff that's sitting on the market is going to,
And for
be a little
Boulder
more
County
competitive.
specifically, the days on market is until they get the offer, versus some of the other things in some of our other slides where it's till sold. So it's taking about 4 weeks to get that.
Yeah, most of the
under
data in the presentation has to be really specific to that. It should be active to under contract time.
Mhm.
All right, so take a look at this one, Weld County. This one's
Yeah, quite a bit.
remarkable.
Quite a bit different than when you look at the Boulder numbers, right?
Yeah.
So, median close price 512,000 versus like 860 or so for Boulder County. But look at where the trend line is. Where that 2019 is really close to where we are today in a lot of those measures, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's pretty amazing to see just how well that market's doing. Active units of inventory are so low, 17% less than this time last year. You can see that, you saw a lot of high rising inventory last year, but this year seems like stable at best, right? I mean, it's almost gone down some months.
Mm-hmm.
It's because of those new listings. Look at that, almost 30% drop in new listings
Yeah.
on the market.
Yeah,
I
no,
think that's wild.
the intake of new listings is a lot less than the stuff that's sitting there for sure.
Well, I think the big thing you want to think about here too is 2019 is that green line at the bottom, right?
Mhm.
Weld County has grown substantially during that time period.
Oh God, yeah.
So I think that's one thing that you have to take into consideration. But this year versus last year, 30% drop is so much,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that all being said, look at the under contracts. The under contracts are somewhere in the middle, right? We're about 6% off at this time last year, but we've been way down the rest of the year. So we haven't had as many homes getting bought and sold there. They only have 2 months of inventory. It's still pretty seller favorable markets, but it is Weld County, and as it grows, it's going to continue to see more and more buyers going into market.
Yeah, we're going to head over to a little bit north to Larimer now. Looking at median sale price closed 594, so a little bit higher, about $80,000 higher than Weld. Still about 200 and some odd dollars different, 200 some thousand odd different than Boulder County. Larimer has been probably always the second fastest growing county for the last few years, just behind El Paso. And right now, what we're seeing is again tracking for the 2019 kind of levels with things, because 2019 be that light blue line.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at the supply line. Same thing's going on this year. It's kind of that focal point between all those years. We really haven't seen a huge increase in inventory month over month, but we are really seeing, trending with the same direction. The one thing that Larimer didn't experience is they didn't experience this hyper increase in inventory that everywhere else seemed to get last year during this time. So we're going to trend probably a lot like what we did a year ago, right?
Yeah.
But new listings are only down 12%, right? So we actually have sellers coming to market in Larimer County, which is kind of the anomaly on the Front Range, I would say.
Yeah, it's been moving fast there, but there's not as much competition when you do make those offers, for sure.
Absolutely. Definitely a muted amount of under contracts, 10% down in the people actually going to market and purchasing homes. But the month supply is staying pretty stable, and it's still trending just above where it was a year ago.
Yeah.
All right, so El Paso, our friends down south.
Yep. Every year, this continues to impress with just overall their price point, increasing. It's always been the value kind of spot in the Front Range. They've certainly seen a huge climb, just like everybody else has in their prices. And so, what's it looking like right now for us, Anthony, in El Paso?
Well, single-family homes are well over 500,000 these days, right? They've actually seen an increase in sales price this year, which is kind of the anomaly compared to a lot of them. 2.5% up at this point. They actually have a little bit of inventory. You might be able to go buy down there right now. 1.9.
Still under 2, though.
Yeah, they're the only market under 2. So I think that says a lot as well. Just, that inventory constraint's still very real in the Springs and in El Paso County. The new listings coming to the market, just like a lot of places like we saw in Weld County, 30% drop in new listings coming to market. So 30% drop in sales in some ways. The townhouse condo markets for solds, those are only down 5%. So you're going to continue to see strong markets down in the Springs for years to come, I think. That's a real big takeaway here. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was our local market update. Don't forget to check out the other podcasts Jim and I do. We do a national update and a Colorado update. I'm Anthony with Land Title. You can always reach me on my cell at 303-968-9868.
And Jim Arian here with Coldwell Banker. I'm at 303-548-0243 or Jim at ourcoloradohomes.com. Have a great one, everybody.
See you next time.
Take care.